watching. Now, one trend that I am seeing everywhere this Christmas are the hot chocolate bombs. Now, these you can add into a mug and you pour hot milk over them and it explodes with cocoa powder and marshmallows. Now, these are a great gift or just something really fun to make. So if you haven't already tried and you want to give them a go, in this week's video tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how you can make them look like little Christmas puddings. Now, if you're not a fan of hot chocolate or you just want to try something different, I'm also going to be making some that are filled with sponge cake or brownies where you can pour hot chocolate sauce over them for the perfect dessert for Christmas Day. Okay, let's get started. So you're going to need to start with your molds. Now, there are a selection of silicone molds available, and I will put a link in the description below where I show you how I use the silicone molds to create some spheres which I added on the top of the cake. But in today's video I'm going to be using this more plastic mold, and this one is actually by a company called Fest Cake London and is a 3-part system. So I'm going to be showing you how to use this one. Now, for these chocolate bombs I'm going to be using some dark chocolate and also some white chocolate. Now, when I melt this down, I do need to temper the chocolate. Now, you may have seen in some of my other videos I tend to use a lot of candy melts, and I like using these because they don't need to be tempered. Now, you can buy different chocolate in order to temper. You can buy little discs, or you can just use normal chocolate bars that you would buy from a shop. Now, if you buy chocolate from a shop, it has already been tempered, so it's got that glossy finish, and when you break it, it's got a nice snap to it. Now, when you melt chocolate, you change the consistency of the sugar crystals inside, so it's no longer tempered. So if you don't re-temper the chocolate before you add it into your molds, it means that it's never going to get solid. It's also going to have a matte appearance to it, and it can also bloom, which means you get these little white dots all over the chocolate where the cocoa fat has separated from the chocolate itself. Now, this mold that I'm using only has space for 3 separate spheres. I'm going to be using 100 grams of chocolate, which is going to give me enough for these 3 spaces. So first, starting with my dark chocolate, I'm going to cut my 200 gram bar in half so that I've got the right amount. I then want to take about 1/3 of my chocolate and just break this into smallish lumps, pop this to one side, break up the rest of my chocolate, place this into a glass bowl, pop this on top of a saucepan of boiling water to melt this down. Now, you can also use the microwave. I just find this a little bit easier for me so that I can keep an eye on the temperature. I've then got a thermometer, so I'm going to pop this inside the mixture as I'm stirring it up. Now, with dark chocolate, you don't want the temperature to get any higher than around 57 to 58 degrees. Now, once it reaches this temperature, even if all that chocolate hasn't already melted, I'm going to take it off of my saucepan. Now, what we want to do is cool that chocolate down, and this is going to temper the chocolate. So the extra 1/3 of chocolate that we kept to one side, add a piece at a time, just stirring this in, allowing the melted chocolate to melt the larger lumps, and just keep an eye on the temperature. When that temperature gets down to around 29 to 30 degrees, it's ready to be used in your mold. What we're looking for is our chocolate to be nice and glossy, and once it's hardened, you want to be able to snap the chocolate and get that nice snap sound. Now, if you are melting milk chocolate or white chocolate, then you don't want the temperature to get any higher than 45 degrees for milk chocolate and around 43 degrees for white chocolate. You then want to bring the temperature of the milk and white chocolate down slightly more. So for milk, it's between about 27 to 28 degrees, and for white chocolate, it's around 26 to 27. As long as you're working within this range, then your chocolate is going to be tempered. Now, different chocolate that you can buy sometimes has some different instructions depending on how it's made. So always make sure that if you are buying chocolate that is especially for melting and for tempering, that they might have their own instructions on the packet. Now, if you are finding it a little bit confusing to follow, I will put some instructions in the description below this video for how I temper my chocolate. Now, bringing back in my mold, I'm going to separate the top. So this bit just comes out, and we have these soft plastic inserts. So I'm going to take those out. On the mold, there is a line around each of the semicircles, and this is how much chocolate we need to add. This mold is very similar to the silicone molds. With the silicone molds, we would just push it all the way up the side. But this one is going to allow us to get a uniform size all the way around and give us a nice thick rim on the top to stick the two together. Take the soft inserts, push that chocolate down until it comes all the way to the top. I can then pop the back on and just flip this over. Now, if there's any parts where you don't think that it's come all the way to the bottom, just work that chocolate round. Now that is ready to pop into the fridge for around 10 minutes, just for that chocolate to completely harden. Now, if you like these molds as much as I do, I have spoken to Fest Cake London and they have given me a 10% off discount code for all of you. Now, this includes the 7cm sphere mold that I've been using in today's video and all of their full price BWB chocolate molds. Now, if you click the link, and I will put this in the description below the video, this will take you to their website and it will automatically take off 10% off any of the molds when you add them to your cart. Okay, so I've just taken my mold out of the fridge and I'm going to take the back piece off. Now, if your chocolate has tempered properly, the shells should just release themselves from the mold. And as you can see, it's nice and glossy on the outside. And I'm just going to hold that and pull off inside of my mold. Also take off any excess bits, and these can just be washed and used again. Now, there are only 3, so it gives me 1 complete ball. So I am going to make a few more just so I get the other half of this one. So for these ones, I'm going to make these into hot chocolate bombs. So I've got some of my hot chocolate powder and also some mini marshmallows. I'm going to bring back in the back of my mold, and I'm going to use this to hold my first shell. And the great thing about this one is because this one goes in the inside, it's slightly smaller than the shell. So that just pokes out a small amount. I'm going to put my hot chocolate powder in there and fill the rest up with my marshmallows. I've then got my metal scraping tool that I use for smoothing around the edges of my cakes. So I'm going to take that and just using a kitchen blowtorch, heat that up, bring back in the other half of my chocolate ball, just place that on the top, just move it around to melt that outer edge slightly and place that onto my ball. Then lift that out and just make sure there's no excess chocolate on the edge. So then we've got our full chocolate ball. Now with these ones, I'm going to finish these off so that they look like little Christmas puddings. So I'm going to add the cream that's going to go on the top. So I've tempered down some white chocolate. Now white chocolate does have a yellow tinge to it. So if you did want this pure white, you can use some bright white candy melts. Pop it into a piping bag, bring back in the balls, bend these on the side so that you can see that seam. And the reason for that is when you then look at the balls from the front, you're not going to see a line running all the way around. Starting with a ball which is around 1 inch in diameter, I'm then going to drip this down the side using end of the piping bag as a guide. Now to add to the top, I'm going to create a small piece of holly. So I've got a dark green fondant and just a small piece of red. You can either use a plunger cutter or I'm going to be using a little holly shape, which is from the Christmas foliage sweet stamp elements set. Stamp that into my fondant to create an outline. Cut this out with my craft knife. I'm then going to take my shape and just pinch one end together. And taking the red, just roll out some really small balls, around 4 to 5 millimeters in diameter. And these are going to be the berries. Taking those bits of holly, I'm going to place that onto the chocolate and add in those little balls that we made. Now I'm going to leave that for that white chocolate just to harden up. But there we have our hot chocolate Choco Bombs. So all you need to do once they're all set is just take your chocolate bomb and pop this into a mug. You then want to heat up some milk and just pour this over the top. That milk is then going to melt our chocolate bomb and those marshmallows and the chocolate powder is going to explode from inside. You can then stir this around and you have a delicious cup of hot chocolate. Now as a an alternative to the hot chocolate bombs. If you wanted to use this as a dessert instead, then you can fill it with some sponge cake, or here I've got some small squares of brownies, and this can be used as a dessert, possibly for Christmas Day. So I'm going to take my first shell, fill the inside with my chocolate brownies. So I've got 4 small brownies in total, and each brownie is about 1 inch by 1.5 inches. So making sure that it's not coming over the edge, melting that outer edge so the 2 halves are going to stick together. I'm then going to use my white chocolate as I did before, creating that drip on the top and adding on a little piece of holly. So we have exactly the same design, but instead of using this one for hot chocolate, we can use this for a really fun dessert for Christmas Day. Once your chocolate bomb has been made, you can then pop it onto your plate or into your bowl and tip hot chocolate sauce over the top. The hot chocolate sauce is going to melt that outer shell, and you're going to have a really yummy chocolate dessert. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and will be able to use it to make your own chocolate bombs. If you have enjoyed the video, as always, don't forget to give it a like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this or more Christmas inspired videos, then don't forget to subscribe to the Cakes by Lens YouTube channel. So until next time, bye!